Hi, I'm Peter Giannetti with the International Housewares Association, and welcome to IHA Market Watch 2021, a special series that will explore the evolution of key lifestyle trends that are driving the home and housewares business this year and beyond. I'm here with the collaborators of the IHA Market Watch report, which debuted last year to spotlight how trends and corresponding consumer attitudes and behaviors are being shaped by the COVID pandemic. I'm pleased to introduce the Market Watch authors. We have Leana Salamah, who's the Vice President of Marketing for the IHA, Tom Mirabile, who's the founder of SPRINGBOARD Futures and the Consumer Trend Analyst for IHA, and Joe Derochowski, who's the Vice President and Home Industry Advisor for the NPD Group. We'll cover 4 key trends this year: time, space, comfort, and safety and security. These trends continue many of the themes presented by the inaugural Market Watch a year ago. But that underscores how they don't just start and end suddenly. These trends can take hold and evolve as a foundation for consumers that presents big opportunities for manufacturers and retailers. During each segment, our Market Watchers will reveal key findings and actionable insights. New to this year's series is a special showcase of home and housewares innovations that demonstrate efforts by the industry to address these trends and serve evolving consumer needs and preferences. Today's discussion is going to be about comfort. But before we get started, we're coming off quite a year. When we first did Market Watch about a year ago, we were learning kind of on the fly about how the consumer was going to respond to things and how that was going to become an opportunity for this industry. Starting with you, Leana, what has sort of changed in the past year and kind of where are we today?
Well, first of all, I think comfort, is interesting in and of itself as a topic because it's a new one for us. It's not one that we addressed back in 2020. And that's not to suggest that some of the products that we're going to show today wouldn't have been applicable to the trends we talked about last year. It's just that they're in a different context now. And, comfort is critical. We miss our family, we miss our friends, things are a little scary out there. And the idea of being able to, kind of feel some kind of, coziness, warmth, even indulgence is really, really, it's soothing and it creates this sense of, of safety almost.
Right. Before we kind of dig deeper into comfort, Tom, where are we as we kind of get rolling here 12 months later?
Well, I think, in our industry, the first thing you think of when you think of comfort is comfort food, yeah. So, and I think that that's certainly part of the trend. But I think it stretches a lot beyond that because we want to feel more comfortable in our home has suddenly become our whole world. Mm-hmm. So it means the comfort of the mat that you're standing on in the kitchen. It means bringing comfort to every experience that you have, whether it's your morning coffee or whether it's what you do at the end of the day. It's really, really looking at the consumer and saying, how can I make this world feel like the whole world and live in just greater comfort in the moment?
Yeah, the thing that we're finding out throughout this series, and we've talked about this last year, we're talking about it now, is while we're identifying specific trends, these trends are really broad in their scope, sort of as Tom explained, but they all interact with one another. And understanding that the consumer is motivated by almost an aggregation or a collective of these trends is important when you look at the merchandising and marketing opportunities. Joe, again, a year later, how has comfort changed?
Well, first, the overall industry has changed. We're very lucky to be in an industry where people are spending money.
Yeah.
Like this is an area that is of importance to them. I know small appliances and housewares were the number 2 and 3 categories of all the industries we track that grew. And because of that, if you've got energy from the consumer and you've got changing behavior, it just creates a whole new set of new needs to solve. And comfort is being one of them. As they mentioned before, with so many things happening, the stress of being at home, the stress of not being connected to friends and family as much as you'd like to do, of managing just all the chaos around it, it just creates this opportunity to really fulfill a consumer need and help them at a very important time of life, and a great way for brands, because of that, to be able to connect to the consumer, both retailers and manufacturers.
Comfort's about reducing friction. It's so much about, I think, the products that we chose, the things that we look at, it's about smoothing things out a little bit, making
About creating an oasis at your home, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's really, that's what you're doing. All of these experiences that, a year ago or more than a year ago, you would have left your house to actually experience are things that you now have to bring back into your home and find ways to achieve, within those four walls.
Well, when you talk about your kids and the memories that you've created, creating new memories, a lot of the products that we really are getting addicted to, you're creating new experiences and creating comfort with just creating a comfortable life in because you get to get a little antsy. And
well, we one of our other sessions, I think it was time, we talk about appreciation, right? And appreciation for the time that we've been given back. It was frustrating at first because it was all this extra time, you didn't know what to do, you felt a little stir crazy. And eventually start to come to appreciate it, and I think appreciation is part of what comfort is all about, kind of feeling that kind of tactile and soothing and, comfortable sensation that you get when when you have created that oasis in your home.
I think when you look at the progression, Leana talks about an oasis. I think our instinct a year ago was to shelter. And sheltering is not necessarily the most comfortable experience.
Yeah.
There was fear, there was uncertainty. But as we progressed, we learned to manage that fear and uncertainty by bringing and surrounding our environment with those things that actually make us feel better, make us comfortable. So we kind of evolved from that sheltering to almost the sanctuary or the oasis, where you're actually sort of glad to be home. It's a place where you can enjoy yourself and not necessarily just take shelter.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, it really is a story of evolution and adaptation, right? And the human nature and the human spirit being able to take a situation like that and eventually, start to learn to adapt and learn to enjoy, some of what you can from it.
With that, the Market Watch sort of is an evolving product.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about kind of what the objective was for Market Watch.
Yeah,
this
so
year.
Market Watch really started out as an attempt to bring the consumer needs, trends, lifestyle into the forefront for the home and housewares market, which isn't to suggest that people weren't doing it before, but to put it in a way that was, digestible for, anybody and everyone in the industry. The objective of it is really to take these macro consumer trends and then identify ways in which manufacturers and retailers can address those trends from a product development standpoint, from an inventory management standpoint, or even, and this goes to what I said about, products can come in and out of different trends. Sometimes it's just about the marketing and positioning of a product.
I think you're right. It really does lead to a great marketing opportunities. One, for manufacturers to figure out ways to not only connect to comfort, but also try to get the consumer next year and the following years. What's a unique way to say, how can you do this as well as still save some of the money that you would do it in home as opposed to going away? The second part is for retailers, it's a chance for them. All of these needs, security, times, all this stuff is at play, and comfort is as well. So how can they make their shoppers feel more comfortable shopping? How can they play to these higher order needs? It really opens up a great innovation opportunity for them as well.
Well, everyone, get a little comfortable as we start to take you through some of the products that represent this trend.
So for the first product we're going to look at here, I mean, to me, it's really basically the definition of comfort, right? This is the Pratika thermal technology foot massager. So what you have here is a foot massager that runs heat, it runs cooling, it does rolling, it does shiatsu. So I mean, in terms of self-care, I mean, this is really where it's at. If you go ahead and press the button, I'm not gonna foot model this, but if you just look at my hands on it and see how they move, like you can imagine how amazing this would feel on the soles of your feet, if they're aching.
The foot massager category has been a growth category, but I think the overall massager category is probably doing well. Joe, what are your numbers telling you?
Last year, massagers grew 64%. Yeah. And if you think about it, there are so many behaviors that we used to do away from home, cutting your own hair, things like that. Well, massaging was another one. So now that we brought it home, it's created another opportunity. And if we can continue to remind the consumer how much money they can save and the benefits that the product gives to them, there could be a long-term play for all
that's
of
another
these.
one of those sticky things. If it goes on long enough, are we going to really, once we have a product like this, are we going to keep going to the salon and spending that kind of money when we realize how easy and the quality of experience it delivers is terrific? So again, you were talking about those merged time, space. It's all of those things. It's just a great experience.
The story you tell is one not just of pure comfort, but of all of the things that a foot massager can do in terms of improving your well-being. It's a real wellness product, and that really resonates with today's consumer.
We have right now the chance to do something at home, but when we go back to work, there's also going to be an opportunity. So you see a lot of people use things underneath their desk that they could be doing at home, but then the same thing when they go back to work. So we actually might have double the opportunity than we normally would have in a year.
So sleep, right? If you're ever going to need to be comfortable, you need to be comfortable in order to get a good night's sleep. So, we knew that something related to, bedding would eventually wind up on our radar here. What we have here is the coolest sleep pillow, and it is the coolest. Literally, come, touch it.
I was blown away.
Yeah.
I thought you'd put it in the fridge or something.
Yeah, no, it is actually
amazing.
cool to the touch. And so it has nanotechnology that keeps the air circulating within it in a way that helps keep it cooler. It is moisture resistant, so it's all about getting a better night's sleep. Who doesn't love the cool side of the pillow, right?
How much did the category grow this year?
Pillows themselves in 23%, overall bedding also in the 20s. So it's just one of these areas that has been growing in part because we're spending more time at home and fixing up parts at home, but the other part is just sleep, comfort, health. I think one of the things that's interesting, especially from a retailer perspective, is that in this category, historically, we don't always market to what the benefits are to the consumer. And so anybody who's going to be successful, being able to speak to a benefit and tying it to the overall is going to always be very helpful. Well,
I think also, like anything, we've been talking about sleep for years, right? And it just keeps, you keep wanting more and more and more out of a product. So last year it might have been that, it's a cool pillow and it's, it feels cool to the touch. But now you've got all these added benefits, like this is completely biodegradable. It's a bio-based materials, so consumers are demanding more and more and more. And also, again, talking to what Peter had said about that crossover between trends. We didn't do a sustainability trend this year, but so much sustainability is being built into every product. It's always being considered in materials, and I think that's a good example of that.
Well, and it's all organic materials, and it's been manufactured. It's cotton. It's not silk or satin, but it certainly feels like it. To run your hand across it, it feels perfectly smooth.
Yeah, another category that maybe people take for granted, but not anymore, and that's opening opportunities for new technology, new features, ultimately new benefits.
So hey guys, carbs are back, right?
Thank God.
In the interest of comfort, we're back to carbs, we're back to sweets, all those things that we decided years and years ago we weren't going to do anymore. Well, one of our products we have today is the Talisman Bread Proofing Bowl with Embosser. And really, it's a proofing bowl, right? So you create the dough, which it is in and of itself really tactile and kind of soothing, in a way. And then it goes into the bowl with a cloth over it so that it can rise. And then I've actually brought an example of what it looks like when it's finished. My 13-year-old daughter made this over the weekend using this bowl, and so bread baking has just become a big thing in our house.
Well, I guess I apologize for this ahead of time, Joe. Bread and all things bread have really been on the rise during the pandemic. Can you give us a little insight into that? I said I'm sorry.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Whether electric or non-electric related things related to bread making are all up over 50%. So it has definitely been growing. I love it that, one, it's a way to get kids engaged. Yeah. That's interesting. But I think a big part of it is also the ability to control the ingredients that you have. Mm-hmm. And part of it is knowing that there's comfort of knowing what you're eating in that area.
I think also, bread's the ultimate comfort food, right? But one of the things that you just said is so resonated with me, that the physical act of making bread, it's not complicated, it's something anybody can do, but our industry has been, for the last few years, focused on delivering restaurant quality, bakery quality results. It may have been cupcakes, it may have been cakes. Bread is like the next thing. This is bakery quality, seriously. Yeah. I was blown away when you told me that you actually made it. Your daughter.
My 13-year-old daughter made it. I'm not going to take credit for this.
And once again, an activity that is family oriented, getting the kids involved. It's really clicks off so many levels of the comfort that we're talking about today.
So we've been talking about comfort food, right? We've covered off on bread, and now we're kind of moving into sweets. And the sweets that we've chosen here specifically is related to ice cream. Ice cream is having a resurgence, sundae bars and other activities and ways to keep the family involved. But what we have here is the Picnic Time family of brands, the Parlor, which is actually, I love this, it's a little ice cream mixing kit. So you have this plate that you put in the freezer so that it stays cold, like some of those videos you see on Facebook and YouTube where they have the frozen metal bottom that they make the ice cream on. And then you take your ice cream, and you have three, at least on here, there's three different options. So we can add some fruit to our ice cream, we can add some chocolate cookies to our ice cream, and we can add some cake to our ice cream. And then much like you see at like a Cold Stone Creamery or other type of custom ice cream place, you just kind of work it in. You just mash it up, keep mixing it, folding it, and chopping it until you wind up with the final product here.
Wow. Serve it up, Leana. One of the great things is it speaks to customization. And yesterday we were talking about individual portions, creating something for everybody. It stops people from digging into other people's desserts and touching everything. And it also, it's an experience,
Well, I know ice cream makers did have a big year. It grew 58%. And I also know that when we start really entertaining and we get more and more people over, we're wanting it to still have these selfie moments, these Facebook moments. And so products that help create those type of moments, they're always going to be attractive for us.
Well, you think about it, it almost reminds me of, when you would go to like an omelet bar, right? And you kind of like walk up, you pick your toppings, the chef kind of does it for you right in front. You could really see this as like an interactive type of activity at a gathering in your home with your friends.
I think social media has driven a lot of product, Jill. It's such a good point. Being able to, we are not going to restaurants anymore to post things. So this is one of those things, it shows the importance of trickle down, and the fact that we experience this at Cold Stone, like you said, and we want to keep what at Springboard we're calling it entertaining. This idea of bringing in the things that you saw outside and entertaining in your house with the things that you
entertaining,
yes,
got it. Okay.
Thanks. That you see at restaurants, you want to bring them in, you want to recreate them. We've got a tradition of that with the coffee industry and bringing, and it's created a lot of business for our industry. As Joe would say, there's a lot of money to be made in these types of things.
I think all of you guys know that I spent some time immersed in the restaurant industry during my time with the National Restaurant Association. And one of the things that we always used to say over there was that anything that you saw at the National Restaurant Association show was probably maybe 3 years away from being on a home chef's counter. And this to me is, and this blows me away, right? So I was there when it was kind of the heyday of molecular gastronomy and all of these things going on. And the product we have here brings that into the home in a way that I have not seen yet. So what we have here, this is the Airtender. And the Airtender does a couple of different things, really, and it uses air in two ways. It can inject air or it can vacuum air. So in terms of vacuuming air, what it does really well is it can vacuum seal if you are pickling, if you are vacuum sealing an open wine bottle. But the injection part of it is really cool too, because it applies to meats, it applies to baked goods, and it even applies to cocktails. And that's kind of how it works its way into the comfort trend, right? Because, because carbs and cocktails, that's the name of my, pandemic restaurant. But what you can do, you can actually take this piece and using the air from the system, you can inject marinades into the meat. So instead of just having it on the outside of it, you actually have it throughout the entire piece. You can use it to inject flavors and fillings into baked goods. And you can use it even to create, those kinds of foams that the molecular gastrologists create, those flavored foams that are on your, as garnishes on your plate, bubbles in cocktails and milkshakes. And what I love too is that it doesn't leave you flying blind. It comes with a whole slew of recipes on their website, ways to get started, ways to get used to the product and understand what it can really do.
It's funny, we talk a lot about products in this business, and a lot of what we've talked about, how the pandemic has enabled people to learn how to cook and do more than that. But you also have to recognize there are many people in the world out there who actually have experience as home cooks, and they're looking to raise their game to that next level, and that connection to the restaurant business and that they want to achieve even higher. This brings them there. What's going on in food market right now?
Well, I think one of the things that is interesting that all of us need to be thinking about is we get so focused on the main dish.
Yeah.
And we sometimes forget about the side dish.
Right.
But the ones we really forget about is also the additives, the ingredients, and the flavorings. And so all of those, because we're eating more at home and because of all the different meal occasions, innovation goes across all of those. Main dish, side dish, appetizer, additive, ingredient, anything that helps in that spot, there's open space for us.
Well, and talk about a conversation piece, right? I mean, when you
Yeah.
think about the social aspects and you think about the, kind of entertainment quality of having something like this in your home and bringing it out during some kind of social gathering and customization, Tom talked to us.
It's very like selfie worthy, but also I think it's one of those things. Again, we're talking to bringing people back in. It's got a lot of entertainment quality. It's hard. It's such a sleek little box that you can't see all the things that it does. But it's one of those things that without the restaurant experience, our industry, people like this are doing the job of creating that trickle down that doesn't exist. We're not going to restaurants anymore. So it's content. They've got an amazing site that shows you 100 different things. The product comes with so much backup content, so many great ideas that it's really immersive after the purchase. And I think our industry has to look beyond the purchase, beyond what they're initially enabled to, sort of put in your hands.
Yeah.
To what's the experience it creates beyond that? What's the relationship after the
And that kind of content makes it non-threatening, right? I mean, certainly
Yep.
you have those folks who are already at-home cooks who are gonna, trying to raise their own bar, who might jump on this and use it right out of the gate. Know what to do
Right.
with it, know how to handle it. But for the average at-home cook, the amount of content and background that they provide with the product just makes it, it's not intimidating. You can get into it, you can try it out. I mean, because to the average cook at home, it could look a little intimidating.
I think one of the things is we talk in the other sessions, like how important taste really is at this time. And so anything that can help in that process to give the consumer confidence that what they're making is going to taste good, that's going to be some comfort.
Sure seems like no matter what trend we're talking about, it all comes back to coffee, right? Eventually, it all comes back to coffee. What we have here is the Shine Kitchen by TriBest automatic pour-over coffee machine. So I'm going to show you how this works here. We've already got our coffee grounds in here. And so you just fill up the water up to about a cup there. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on it. Press start. And now what happens, you see, is the water compartment actually begins to rotate. So it mimics, the process of pour over, and that it evenly distributes the water throughout the grounds.
Well, once again, coffee is transcendent. We've talked about coffee makers and other trends during this series. And again, you're looking at an age-old process that has been modernized with the effort to improve the flavor of coffee. Everyone's in pursuit of that perfect cup of coffee. And again, at the end of the day, is there anything more comforting than a good cup of coffee?
Yeah,
Joe,
coffee
you
is always hot. I mean, it's what?
She
Sorry,
said
that
cup
was
of Joe, if you
delayed.
didn't hear that.
No, I did not. I did not. No, thank you. But coffee, it's the number one thing that we eat at breakfast. It always has been, by far. And it's something we're always balanced between taste, versatility, and convenience. And I know over the past year, like non-electric pour-overs grew 29%. At some point, this idea that anything to help make great tasting coffee is going to be very, very appealing
I
at
think also
this moment.
comfort is about minimizing the stress you have in making something. And I mean, I use a pour over at home, so it's like if you do it too fast, you're like, I'm rushing, it's not gonna be as good. And with this, it's like you just do it. It takes the weight out of, and not that we worry about coffee, but it's just like, now I can just enjoy it without having to worry about, did I pour it? Because the slower you pour, the less bitter it is, the more dense the flavor is, and that's why people love pour-overs. But it can be a commitment. You're only still a little bit at a time,
So it has that, like we talk about how so many of these products, there's really kind of a Venn diagram between multiple trends. So I mean, what you have here, you have something that, to your point, instead of standing in front of it and having to tend to, you can turn it on, you can walk away from it and still have the same experience. So it has a time component in addition to being very, very much, comfort centric.
This may sound trite, but it's such a visual thing. It's like, it's one of those things that's just, it's just a mellowing sort of like,
It is kind of soothing, actually, as you watch it.
Like
you
lava
kind of
lamps,
watch it rotate. It is like a lava lamp.
I just love it.
So over and over again in these products, when we talk about comfort, we come back to food, we come back to comfort food. But the other piece of what comfort is really about is about togetherness and about the social aspect that we've really been missing over the last year, that we've been, having to social distance, having to, stay away from some of our loved ones. And this product we have here is the Sultan Raclette. And I personally didn't know what a raclette was until very recently. But what this is actually the top here is a grill where you can put, meats or vegetables on here. And while that's cooking, the heat source underneath actually warms these little paddles, which are meant as repositories for cheese or for sauces or anything else that you might want to eat with the vegetables and the meats that you have here.
It's a good example of a pandemic bringing to life a category that's actually been around for a while. And that manufacturers and retailers have to understand that the consumer's exploring things now that maybe in the past they weren't necessarily going to look at as closely.
I love it for a couple of reasons. First, because it speaks to individual portions, but it's a lot of the things that we've looked at today are talking to that transition of going from, yes, this is great for me and my family and our pod, whoever we really trust, right inside. But as we're entertaining again, we're bringing people into our home who haven't been there in a while. We want to do fun things that maybe they haven't seen before, show off some of our new skills or whatever. And this is a great example.
And if I'm not mistaken, this has very, very close relationship with the concept of fondue, right?
So it's that social,
like next level fondue,
social eating experience. Really, it was probably built more around family, if you look at the roots of it. But it grows into a much broader social experience.
And certainly, when you think about fondue, you think about comfort, right?
Yep.
I mean, it immediately has that kind of aesthetic to it.
Well, you always think in every social situation, it is a selfie moment, something that allows you to tell a story that's a little bit different. We're always looking for something that's a little different.
Yeah, and especially if, to kind of, Peter, to your point, something that maybe the average person's, fans or followers or whomever may or may not have seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, part of social media and Instagrammable moments is being in the know and being the first to try something or the first. So, something like this that's still, that, like you said, maybe isn't new in concept, but is new to this market, really fulfills that.
And it demonstrates very well and very vividly. Again, it opens itself up to more forms of media to get that message across.
The next product on our comfort list is actually maybe a little unexpected. This is the Dexys Mudbuster. This is a pet product. And what it does is it's got a number of these, soft kind of fingers in here, and it can be used for the dog's paw to get dirt and snow off of it after they come inside.
Salt.
Yeah, salt, absolutely.
Salt's a crazy.
Well, it's funny, the housewares industry, companies in the housewares business have been making pet products that are sort of derivative of their people products, if you will, for many, many years. But if there's a growth category out there that's crying for more participation from this industry, it is the pet products business. Joe, what do we know about that business the last year?
Well, one, we know a lot of animal shelters are basically run dry, part of it. Second, I know floor care, from a floor care perspective, for the top 5 home environment, air purifiers first, but the other 4 are all floor care related, and especially ones related to dogs and newer dogs that you have. Even my wife, who I would have bet snow in July before her saying yes, because she said it so long with the kids, she comes home and says right before the kid's birthday, you know what, I think we should get a dog. And we've gotten, and Sunshine's her name, she's been great throughout the whole period and has changed our lives. But the point is, it really was this point of comfort. It was at the time when people are still stressed, they're heading back to school or other activities, or do they not go, and how do they stay home, and their friends are missing them. And so it just became such a large part of that.
People want to make their pets as comfortable as they want to be themselves.
Right.
And I think, we talk about ease of care too. What I love about this product, you pull it apart, because I own it as well. Now they make it in different sizes, but you just throw this in the dishwasher and it's clean. So it's easy to clean, and honestly, salt in the city, and well, I'm sure it's in the country, you don't want to see your pet tortured. You want to give them a little pleasure. You want them to be happy.
Well, what's interesting, when we talk about comfort, we've talked about products that are for yourself, You've got something that's for someone else. And then you've got something in this case here that really kind of brings everybody
Right.
together. And part of comfort has that little layer of a connection point where everybody's focused on.
And we're talking about dogs, but I can't go without saying that we got a COVID kitten. And you know what? I mean, she's a little ray of sunshine as well. She's the most cuddly, sweetest thing. And I tell you, I mean, it's a real bright spot, and it really, she's served as a pick-me-up, for all of us during this time.
Boy, it's too bad we don't have a dog to demonstrate it on.
Yeah, well, see, that's where you're wrong, Peter. I am pleased to introduce all of you. Bring him up here. Hi, big boy. This is Tracer. He is my parents' golden retriever, and my dad was kind enough to bring him up today to let him help us out with this demonstration. Sit. Good boy. Now, he has one of these mud busters at home, so he knows how this works. So what you do is have your paw here. Thank you. You just go in and out a couple times. Gets all the dirt and the snow and everything right off of his paw. Now, and then he gets a treat. Good boy. Good boy, Tracer. Thank you. Thanks, Dad.
Well, we saw a lot of examples of how the comfort trend really covers so much ground right now, from bedding to coffee makers. And so what are the key takeaways, Tom, when you think of how to integrate comfort into a marketing and a merchandising plan right now?
I think from a marketing perspective, we're so used to talking about comfort and saying, oh, it's a very physical, tangible, comfortable thing. And yes, certainly that's part of it, whether it's in textiles or in the rest of home. But comfort is also very much a mental thing right now. And I think a lot of the products that we looked at as we were going through them, I'm thinking, you know what? This is about making other people comfortable in your home as you start entertaining again. It's about the moment to moment with your kids, creating comfortable experiences, creating memories. A lot of memories have been created during this period because we haven't had you can't have a sweet 16 party, you can't have graduation, you can't get married. And during this whole thing, we know that people are putting off some of the events that are really essential to our business movement and our business growth, like weddings. It's our job to create experiences that keep people satisfied, communicating, whether on social media. There's so much to do with comfort that has to do with communicating.
I think people used to sacrifice comfort for other things. I don't think they're making that sacrifice anymore. They may not even realize that, but comfort is not just a luxury, it's really become a necessity.
Yeah, well, if you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it starts at the bottom, and sometimes we just blow right by that and not realizing it's important in today's consumer, and it's important for a brand to be able to connect to it. It also opens up so many opportunities because, as we saw, some of these are things directly to yourself. Some are with beyond yourself, with your dogs. Some are about connection between people. And so there's so many facets to comfort to build in. And so it's not just only for the manufacturers, but the retailers themselves, as we mentioned before, when their shoppers are shopping, what are all the different layers and facets too that you can solve and touch to that part of the consumer psyche?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And you just look at the array of products we looked at for this trend in particular, right? And what that really comes down to for me is that comfort means so many things. It can mean so many different things to so many different people, but ultimately it's a little about, treat yourself, right? I mean, it's about taking care of yourself. It's about, doing something that brings you joy and that makes you feel content or happy or, any of these other things. We talk about the home as an oasis, right? We're spending so much time there. How do you create moments in your home that bring you little sparks of joy and, little bits of comfort throughout the way? And I think it varies so much that the opportunity is just boundless.
You touched on something that's so important, and I kept thinking all day, what's this word that's not coming into my head? Indulgent. That idea of comfort is about indulgence, and when we're stuck inside, when we treat ourselves in different ways. Sometimes it's with carbs, or maybe it's cocktails, but the bottom line is indulgence plays a big part in comfort with our kids, with ourselves, with our loved ones. So,
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for indulging us today. For Tom, Leana, and Joe, I'm Peter. We'll see you real soon.